Your neighbor spends 3 hours every Saturday pulling weeds, deadheading flowers, watering plants that are already dying, and replanting things that did not survive the winter. Every single Saturday, for 6 months straight. You are about to spend 30 minutes this April planting 15 perennials that will never need deadheading, never need replanting, and actually spread faster when you ignore them. Your yard will have more color, more blooms, and more compliments than theirs. And you will be sitting on your porch with a cold drink while they are on their hands and knees pulling weeds in July. This is not about being lazy. This is about being smart. This is about planting things that were designed by nature to survive without you, multiply without you, and look better every single year without you lifting a finger. If you have ever killed a plant, if you have ever forgotten to water something until it was too late, if you have ever looked at your garden and thought, "I do not have time for this," you are in exactly the right place. These 15 perennials do not just tolerate neglect. They prefer it. Let's not waste another second. Here is exactly what you need to plant right now. Before we start, I need to tell you something that most gardening content will never admit. The reason your garden feels like work is because you have been sold plants that require work. Garden centers make money when you buy fertilizer, pest spray, replacement plants, and specialized tools. They do not make money when you plant something once, and it thrives for 20 years without another purchase. So the plants they promote, the ones on the end caps, the ones in the big colorful displays, are annuals and high-maintenance perennials that need constant intervention. That is the business model. You buy it, it struggles. You buy more products to help it, it dies anyway. You come back next spring and buy it again. The cycle repeats. Revenue flows, shareholders are happy, but here is what they are not telling you. The plants that actually survive, the ones that spread, the ones that come back bigger and stronger every year without help, are sitting in the back corner of the nursery in plain black pots with no signage and no marketing. Because once you buy them, you never come back. One purchase, permanent results, zero recurring revenue. That is why you have never heard of half the plants on this list. Not because they do not work, but because they work too well. Daylily hemerocallis. This plant grows in Alaska. It grows in Florida. It grows in Arizona deserts and Minnesota winters. If that does not tell you everything you need to know about how indestructible it is, nothing will. Hardy in USDA zones 1 through 11. That is the entire country, every single state. There is almost no place in America where this plant will not grow, spread, and bloom year after year without you doing a single thing. The color range is absurd. Over 80,000 registered cultivars: deep burgundy, soft peach, bright orange, pale lemon, creamy white, rich purple, vivid red, bicolors that look hand-painted. When you plant a mix of early, mid-season, and late varieties together, you get continuous waves of bloom from May all the way through September. Each flower lasts 1 day, hence the name daylily, but each plant produces so many buds that the show never stops. Here is the part nobody tells you. Every 4 to 5 years, you dig up one clump and divide it into 10 to 15 separate plants. That is not maintenance. That is free money. At $10 per plant in any garden center, one original daylily eventually produces over $100 worth of plants straight from your yard. You are not gardening. You are compounding assets. And here is the killer detail. Mass-planted daylilies shade the ground so completely that weeds cannot establish. Highway departments across America use them on roadsides specifically for this reason. Your weedy border problem is solved with one planting decision. One warning: daylilies are toxic to cats. Every part of the plant, including pollen. If cats spend time in your garden, skip this one or fence it off. For dog owners, generally safe. Now here is the question I need you to answer in the comments right now. What is the one spot in your yard that has defeated every plant you have ever tried? Tell me your state or zone and what you have already tried. Because I guarantee at least 5 plants on this list were designed for exactly that problem. Drop it below. I read every comment. Sedum, autumn joy. If you have ever looked at a plant in August and thought, why does everything look so tired and burnt out? This is the plant that fixes that. Most perennials peak in June and July. By August, they are done. Sedum autumn joy does not even start blooming until late summer. It carries your garden through fall when everything else has already quit. The flower heads start as tight green broccoli-like clusters in July. By August, they open into flat pink blooms that cover the entire top of the plant. In September, the pink deepens to rose. By October, it turns copper and rust. Even after frost, the dried seed heads stand through winter, providing structure and feeding birds when nothing else is available. You get 4 seasons of interest from one plant that you water exactly 0 times after the first year. Sedum is a succulent. It stores water in its leaves. It thrives on neglect. Overwatering kills it. Rich soil makes it floppy. The worst soil in your yard is this plant's ideal home. Plant it in full sun in the driest, rockiest, most neglected spot you have. Then walk away. It will outperform everything you have ever bobbied. Here is what makes it even better. Sedum spreads slowly through underground rhizomes, but you can also propagate it by breaking off a stem, sticking it in the ground, and walking away. That broken stem will root and become a full plant. No rooting hormone, no special care, just stick it in dirt. One plant becomes 20 plants in 3 years from stems you broke off while weeding, and pollinators lose their minds over it. Bees, butterflies, and beneficial wasps swarm autumn joy from August through October. If your vegetable garden is underperforming, if your fruit trees are not setting fruit, the problem might be that you do not have enough pollinator plants in bloom during late summer. Sedum fixes that while looking incredible and requiring nothing. Hosta. If you have shade, you need Hosta. If you have dry shade, the hardest growing condition in all of gardening, you absolutely need Hosta. Hosta thrives in conditions that kill almost everything else. Deep shade under mature trees where surface roots suck up every drop of moisture and nothing else will grow. That is Hosta's sweet spot. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Foliage ranges from tiny miniatures the size of your hand to giant specimens with leaves 18 inches across. Colors include deep green, chartreuse, blue-green, gold, white variegated, and cream-edged. When you plant a mixture of sizes and colors, you create a layered shade garden that looks professionally designed and costs you nothing after the first season. The flowers are a bonus. Tall spikes of white or lavender blooms in mid to late summer. Some are fragrant. All attract hummingbirds, but you are growing Hosta for the foliage, and the foliage performs from April through October with 0 deadheading, 0 fertilizing, and 0 pest management in most regions. Here is the detail that changes everything. Hosta spreads slowly. It forms dense clumps that suppress weeds completely. Once established, nothing grows under Hosta. Not grass, not weeds, nothing. Your shady weed problem is over. Every 3 to 4 years, divide the clumps in early spring. One Hosta becomes 5 to 8 plants. You now have $50 to $80 worth of plants from something you bought once for $10. And here is the only caveat. Deer and slugs love Hosta. If deer pressure is high in your area, choose fragrant or thick-leaved varieties. Deer avoid them. For slugs, use any standard organic slug control method or plant Hosta in areas with good air circulation. The problem is manageable, and the plant is worth it. Russian sage, Perovskia atroplicifolia. If you live in a hot, dry climate and you are tired of watching things wilt in July, this plant will change your entire gardening perspective. It does not just tolerate heat and drought. It thrives in them, prefers them, gets better as conditions get worse. Hardy zones 4 through 9. Airy silver-gray foliage and tall spikes of lavender-blue flowers from June through September. The whole plant shimmers in the breeze. It looks delicate and ethereal, but it is tougher than anything else in your garden. Full sun, poor soil. 0 supplemental water after establishment, that is the recipe. Rich soil makes it floppy. Overwatering causes root rot. The worst gardener in the world cannot kill this plant because neglect is what it wants. Deer and rabbits will not touch it. The foliage is aromatic and they hate the smell. Pollinators, on the other hand, swarm it. Bees work it constantly. It is one of the top 5 bee plants you can grow in a hot, dry climate, and it requires no deadheading. Let it bloom, let it fade, let the seed heads stand through winter. Cut the whole plant back to 6 inches in early spring. That is the only maintenance it will ever ask for. 1 cut per year. That is it. Russian sage works as a specimen plant, a mass planting, or a flowing informal hedge. Professional landscapers use it constantly because it performs in conditions where everything else fails and clients love it. Now you know their secret, and you can plant it for $12 instead of paying someone $80 per plant plus installation. Black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia fulgida goldsturm. This plant grows wild along American roadsides from Maine to Texas. You have driven past it your entire life, and garden centers charge $9 per pot for it. That should tell you something. It is so tough, so reliable, so bulletproof that it does not need humans to survive. It spreads on its own, reseeds on its own, and thrives on its own. You are not rescuing this plant. You are inviting it into your garden. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Golden yellow petals around a dark chocolate center. The contrast is so vivid it looks almost unreal. Blooms from July through October. Most summer perennials are finished by August. Goldsturm is just getting started. When your neighbor's garden is brown and exhausted, yours is still covered in gold. University studies confirm that the goldsturm cultivar blooms longer and more prolifically than the wild species. This is documented research, not marketing hype. Choose goldsturm every time. It spreads 2 ways simultaneously. Underground rhizomes expand the clump outward each season, and the seed heads drop seeds that germinate into new plants the following spring. You plant 1. By year 3, you have a sweeping colony, and here is the wildlife bonus. Leave the seed heads standing through winter. Goldfinches, sparrows, and chickadees feed on them from October straight through February. You are feeding wildlife through the hardest months at 0 cost, while your neighbors are buying suet and seed mixes. Your garden feeds the birds naturally. That is the native plant advantage. Now I want to stop for a second and talk about what is actually happening in this video. You are learning about plants that eliminate work, eliminate cost, and eliminate the need to keep buying things. If that resonates with you, if you want a garden that works for you instead of you working for it, subscribe right now. Not at the end. Now. Because gardeners who subscribe early in a video are the ones who actually use this information. They are the ones whose gardens look completely different next year. Be one of them. Hit that button. Catmint, Nepeta ex Faucina, Walker's Low. If deer have destroyed your garden 2 years running and you are done being patient, this conversation needed to happen before you spend another $1. Hardy zones 4 through 8. Lavender blue flowers over silvery gray aromatic foliage from late spring through midsummer. It mounds naturally to about 2 feet tall and cascades over edges without any training. Deer evaluate plants by scent before they taste them. Catmint's aromatic oils repel deer at the approach stage before contact happens. Unlike spray repellents that wash off in the first rain, this plant is the repellent. It is always on, all season, every day. Year after year, 0 reapplication. Cut it back by half immediately after the first bloom flush. Wait 3 weeks. It rebounds fuller, denser, and produces a complete second wave of flowers that carries through late summer. 2 bloom seasons from 1 plant. No deadheading. Just 1 cut. Catmint is one of the most versatile border plants in American gardening. It softens hard edges along pathways. It flows naturally at the front of beds. It pairs with roses, coneflowers, grasses, almost anything. Professional designers reach for it constantly because it solves problems other plants create. And the pollinators are extraordinary. Dozens of bee species visit it continuously. If your vegetable yields are low or your fruit trees are not setting fruit, the answer might be that you do not have enough pollinator plants. Catmint addresses that while solving your deer problem and filling your border with color for 2 seasons. 3 problems, 1 plant. Coneflower Echinacea purpurea. This plant has been used medicinally for over 400 years by Native American tribes. European settlers adopted it. Pharmaceutical companies studied it. Immune support supplements are made from it, and it grows in your garden with 0 care and spreads for free. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Purple, pink, white, orange, yellow, and red cultivars available. The classic purple coneflower is the toughest and most reliable. The newer color varieties are beautiful but slightly less vigorous. If you want bulletproof performance, stick with purple. It blooms from early summer through fall. The cone-shaped centers remain attractive even after the petals fade. Leave them standing through winter. Goldfinches feed on the seeds. The dried seed heads provide winter structure. Cut them back in early spring and the cycle repeats. Coneflowers spread slowly through self-seeding. They are not aggressive. They are polite. They fill in gaps. They naturalize into drifts. And they support more pollinator species than almost any other garden perennial. Over 20 species of native bees, butterflies, and beneficial insects visit coneflowers regularly. This is not a decorative plant that happens to attract a few bees. This is a keystone pollinator species. Growing it makes your entire garden ecosystem more productive. And it does all of this while tolerating drought, poor soil, heat, and total neglect. Water it the first season to establish roots. After that, ignore it. It prefers neglect. Lamb's ear, Stachys byzantina. If you have never grown a plant specifically for texture, this is the one that will change your mind. Hardy zones 4 through 8. The leaves are covered in dense silvery white woolly hairs that feel exactly like the name suggests. Soft, velvety, tactile. Children stop and touch it. Adults stop and touch it. Visitors reach down without asking. It is one of the only plants that creates a physical sensory memory, and that memory brings people back to your garden. Beyond the texture, the silver-white foliage creates visual contrast against every other color in your garden. It makes purple flowers look deeper. It makes pink flowers softer. It makes red flowers more saturated. Landscape designers use it as a living color amplifier. You are not just planting lamb's ear. You are improving every plant around it. The foliage is not pigment. It is the physical structure of the hairs reflecting light, and those same hairs reduce moisture evaporation from the leaf surface. Lamb's ear is drought-engineered at the cellular level. In the hottest weeks of summer, while other plants wilt, lamb's ear manages its own water loss with a system more sophisticated than anything you could buy in a bottle. It spreads through stolons, horizontal stems that root as they travel. It fills gaps. It suppresses weeds. In zones 6 and warmer, it stays semi-evergreen through winter, providing silver ground-level structure when everything else is brown. Plant it as an edging along paths. Use it as ground cover between taller perennials. Run it as a silver ribbon connecting unrelated color groups. It unifies a border and makes your whole garden look intentional. Coral bells, heuchera. If you need year-round color and you are tired of plants that only look good for 6 weeks, coral bells will rewrite your understanding of what perennials can do. Hardy zones 4 through 9. This plant is grown for foliage, not flowers, and the foliage performs 365 days a year. Colors include deep purple, lime green, caramel bronze, silver, peach, and near black. Some varieties have veining that looks hand-painted. When you plant a mix of colors together, you create a tapestry that looks incredible in every season, even under snow. The flowers are a bonus. Delicate spikes of tiny bell-shaped blooms in late spring. Hummingbirds visit them. But even without flowers, heuchera earns its space. It tolerates part shade to full shade better than almost any colorful foliage plant. That shady corner where nothing interesting will grow, plant coral bells. It thrives there. It does not just survive, it glows, and it requires almost no maintenance. No deadheading, no staking, no division for years, just plant it and let it perform. The only care it asks for is removing old tired leaves in early spring. That is it. One cleanup per year. In return, you get year-round color that costs nothing and never stops working. Salvia May night. If you want something that blooms non-stop from late spring through fall and attracts every pollinator in a half-mile radius, Salvia May night is the plant. Hardy zones 4 through 8. Deep violet blue flower spikes over dark green foliage. The color is so saturated it almost does not look real. It blooms in May. Cut it back after the first flush. It reblooms in July. Cut it again. It reblooms in September. 3 bloom cycles from one plant in one season. And it never stops attracting bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. The nectar flow is continuous as long as flowers are present. Salvia tolerates heat, drought, and poor soil. It does not need rich garden loam. It does not need weekly watering. It does not need fertilizer. Plant it in full sun in average soil. Then ignore it except for the 2 cuts per season. That minimal intervention gives you months of color and pollinator support that most gardeners think requires constant work. It does not. Salvia does the work. You just show up twice to cut it back. And here is the bonus. Deer and rabbits avoid it completely. The foliage is aromatic and they will not touch it. If you have been fighting deer for years, salvia belongs in every border. Ornamental grasses, specifically miscanthus and panicum. If you have never planted grasses, you are missing the single easiest way to add movement, sound, and 4-season structure to your garden. Grasses move in the breeze. They rustle. They sway. They add a sensory dimension that flowering perennials cannot match, and they require less maintenance than anything else on this list. Miscanthus sinensis, maiden grass, hardy zones 5 through 9. Tall, arching foliage and feathery plumes in late summer that last through winter. Panicum virgatum, switchgrass, hardy zones 4 through 9. Upright blue-green foliage that turns gold and orange in fall. Both are native or well-adapted to American conditions. Both tolerate heat, drought, poor soil, and neglect. Both provide habitat for beneficial insects and birds. And both stand through winter, providing structure when everything else is gone. Plant grasses in full sun. Do not amend the soil. Do not fertilize. Do not water after establishment. In late winter or early spring, cut the whole plant back to 6 inches. That is the only maintenance. 1 cut per year. The rest of the time, the grass works on its own. It grows, it blooms, it seeds. It feeds wildlife. It looks incredible in every season. And it does it all without asking you for a single thing. Astilbe. If you have a shady, moist area and you have struggled to find anything that blooms there, Astilbe is the answer you have been looking for. Hardy zones 3 through 8. Feathery plumes of flowers in pink, red, white, and lavender over fern-like foliage. Blooms in early to midsummer depending on variety. The flowers last for weeks. Even after they fade, the dried plumes remain attractive through late summer. This is one of the few shade perennials that delivers serious color without needing full sun, and it thrives in moisture. That low spot in your yard that stays damp, the area under downspouts, the edge of a rain garden, plant Astilbe. It loves it. It does not spread aggressively, but it does fill in over time into substantial clumps. Divide every 3 to 4 years. 1 plant becomes 5. You just created $40 worth of plants from 1 purchase. And it requires no deadheading, no staking, no pest management. Just plant it in shade with consistent moisture and let it grow. That spot that has defeated everything else finally has a plant that wants to be there. Bleeding Heart Dicentra spectabilis. This plant is proof that shade gardens do not have to be boring. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Heart-shaped pink and white flowers dangle from arching stems in late spring. The effect is delicate, romantic, and completely unique. Nothing else looks like Bleeding Heart. It blooms for 4 to 6 weeks in spring, then the foliage fades by midsummer. That is not a flaw. That is the plant's natural cycle. It goes dormant in summer heat. Plant it with ferns or Hosta that fill in as Bleeding Heart fades. The combination creates a succession of interest that keeps the area attractive all season. Bleeding Heart tolerates deep shade. It thrives under mature trees. It does not need rich soil. It does not need fertilizing. Plant it once and it returns every spring for decades. Some Bleeding Heart plants are over 50 years old, still blooming every year in the same spot. That is not gardening. That is planting an heirloom. Balm monarda. If you have never had a hummingbird hover 2 feet from your face while you are sitting in your yard, balm makes that happen. And once it happens, you will never garden without it again. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Spiky tubular flowers in red, pink, purple, and white. The tubular shape is biologically engineered for hummingbird feeding. Their beaks fit perfectly. They visit daily all season long. Monarchs visit, swallowtails visit, bumblebees work it constantly. One planting supports more wildlife species than almost anything else combined. Here is the detail most people miss. Bee balm is in the mint family. The leaves are edible and brew into tea that tastes like Earl Grey, specifically the bergamot note. You are growing a wildlife magnet and a functional kitchen herb in the same plant. Choose mildew-resistant cultivars, Jacob Klein for red, raspberry wine for pink. Both perform beautifully with far less maintenance than older varieties. And bee balm spreads through rhizomes. It fills space. It naturalizes. One plant becomes a colony in 3 seasons. Yarrow Achillea millefolium. If you have a spot with terrible soil, blazing sun, and no water, yarrow is the plant that will not just survive there but thrive there. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Flat-topped flower clusters in yellow, white, pink, coral, and red. Feathery aromatic foliage. Blooms from late spring through fall if you deadhead occasionally, but even without deadheading it blooms for months, and it tolerates conditions that kill everything else. Gravel, hardpan, cracked dry soil, poor drainage. Yarrow handles it. Rich soil makes it floppy and weak. Poor soil makes it strong and vigorous. This is the rare plant where neglect improves performance. Deer and rabbits avoid it. The scent repels them, and it attracts parasitic wasps, lacewings, and hoverflies, insects that prey on aphids and other pests. While yarrow is blooming, it is running a biological pest control program you never scheduled. Every division from an established clump is a free plant. One 3-year-old yarrow yields 8 to 10 divisions. That is real money from 30 minutes of work. Now here is what I want you to do. Look at the spot in your yard that frustrates you the most. The area that is too dry, too shady, too rocky, or too neglected. Match that spot to one of these 15 plants. Then go buy that plant this week. Not next month, this week. Because the only thing stopping your yard from looking better than your neighbor's is the decision to plant something that does not need you to succeed. These plants were designed by nature to spread, survive, and thrive without human intervention. You are not doing them a favor by planting them. They are doing you a favor by growing. Subscribe right now if this list just saved you years of trial and error. Hit the bell. And drop a comment telling me which plant you are planting first and what problem it is solving. I read everyone. Your low-maintenance dream garden starts with one decision. Make it today.